an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Wizard's Holiday. Chapters 2.5 through 3? I guess it's really 1.5 through 3? Anyway, from where I left off last time to the end of Chapter 3. In these chapters, Nita decides that she's going to take this break after all. Her father, who is way ahead of her, has already gotten things lined up for it, and as it turns out, Kit's parents are also ahead of him. I really enjoyed this little lead-up, but I'm worried. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Yama for commissioning this episode. Yama is here in the chat, and I was talking about which version of the book I have, because thanks to Patricia, I have a version that is the updated, New Millennium version. And Yama says, I have the audiobook, so I have no idea what version I'm in. Yama, you're making a good point, because I'm over here acting like I read this from the Kindle this time. But I vary depending on where my headspace is at on a given day and whether I feel like I can sit down and do a regular read. And today I did audiobook. And I don't know either if the audiobook is the same or not. So as I look through the New Millennium version that I have on my Kindle for iPhone, I'll be interested to see if there are any differences that I can pick up on, or if it's just, maybe there are subtle changes that I wouldn't notice, or changes that happen elsewhere in the book, but not in this particular section. So this is the part that I left off last time was, let's get this shopping done. So we start from there midway through chapter 2. And it's Nita and her dad grocery shopping. The way things had gone in the old days, on occasions when the whole family went to the store together, it had been Nita's dad's job to push the cart and make helpful suggestions. Her mom had done the choosing. Nita now sighed a little as her dad went for the cart, and she consciously took on the choosing role for the first time. Again, I said it already last time, but I'm irritated by this. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm probably oversensitive. But I have to say something about it. I can't just pretend that I'm not feeling a way about it. She says, this is what gets me. She had been half-hearted when shopping before, which probably had been the cause of some of the trouble. I guess I owe the fridge a little apology, she thought. What? I guess. I don't think so. I don't know about that. Whatever. I'm just, I don't know. So this is when she hands her dad a lettuce and tells him the crisper, he's counting on you. And her dad is like, how can you tell it's a he? And she says, you can look at the gender equivalent of the word lettuce in the speech. Or on the other hand, you can just ask. I'd probably prefer to pass on that second option. I don't know if I'd want to talk to something I might eat. Daddy, this might sound weird to you, but some things are less upset about being eaten than they are about being wasted. And he says, ouch. And I was a little bit taken aback by this. I mean, she says something like, I didn't mean it that way. And I'm like, you didn't mean it what way? I felt like that was a particularly apt way of putting it. She's acting as if maybe she was too harsh here. But I don't necessarily, is it just the fact that she used the word being wasted with a sort of an accusation in there? I just was surprised by this, because for me, I was like, that's a really good way of putting it. It got right to the heart of things. And see, this is what makes me wonder, guys, because if you've listened to my other shows, have a little bit of a reputation for being a little harsher than I think I am. And when I say reputation, I don't just mean with listeners. I mean in relationships also. I have been told that I can be very cutting. And on my end of things, I always feel like I'm just doing my best to try and convey information in the most efficient way possible. And I mean that. When I say efficient, I'm like, what is the quickest way to get to the point without trying to be cute about it or attempting to dance around something? Because in my experience, being indirect is much more often than not ineffective. Direct equals effective, indirect equals ineffective. So that's part of my problem with people who are passive aggressive, because I feel like if you want to say something, then say it. If you don't want to say it, then shut the fuck up. You get those two options. But apparently there's a whole third option that I just don't acknowledge because I see it as pointless. And these kinds of interactions, I have had this more than once, where I will think, yeah, that's the way to say that. And I will get a response or see in the text a response that seems offended. And I'm like, I genuinely don't know what's offensive about that. I really thought that she made a good case here, and that's all she's trying to do. So I thought. So I'm a little bit curious about, what other people's reactions were to this. And she says, I didn't mean it that way. He says, I didn't think you did. Again, what is it that what is the subtext here? I don't get it. And then, but sometimes ouch is a healthy reaction, or so I hear. And when she says you've been talking to Tom again, he says, no, Millman. And I was like, wait, is her dad talking to her like school counselor? I don't know if that sort of, she just goes right past him saying that. And I wanted more questions about that. I was really curious about that. So she's reading the ingredients and noticing how many things are in the ingredients list that she does not recognize. And Nita says, I'm starting to get why Mom was so intense about home cooking. Guess I'm just going to have to learn. I just hate this. I'm just going to say it. I just hate this development. And I know that this happens. I have to acknowledge that this happens. When there is a death, the eldest sibling often is expected to step into whatever parent's role has just been vacated. And it's probably just rubbing me the wrong way because Nita is a girl and it's her mother who died. So she is getting all of this domestic expectation put on her, which for me just feels really gendered and sexist and gross. And there's a lot of baggage in there for me. I can't help that. If this were a different situation, I don't know how I would feel. It's probably like if it were Kit whose mother died and Kit were being expected to learn how to cook, would I be so outright angry about it? I don't know. I think I'd still be resentful, but I don't think it would have the same edge to it. That said, I don't love when there's a father figure who dies and now the oldest brother has to earn a living for the sake of his that. It's not fair, but life isn't fair. And it's, unless your parent is going to immediately remarry, there's a void there that needs filling. And it's not like Nita is so, she's out saving the world. She literally has taken on so much more responsibility than this before that this shouldn't get to me the way it is. But I just have a knee-jerk reaction to it. And Yama is saying, I hate it too. And that makes me feel better. It's just one of those things, guys, why isn't it that her father needs to learn how to cook? I genuinely want to know. And it bothers me even more that Diane Duane isn't asking that question, which makes me go, okay, did it occur to you that he should? Or are you just trying to stay true to Nita's like personality, in which she would feel the responsibility to step up, and it wouldn't occur to her that her father should learn. Is that what it is? Because it doesn't seem to enter Nita's mind, but I can't tell if that's because of who she is as a character or who the author is. And I don't like it when that's indistinct for me, you know? So her dad asks what her other kids are doing for spring break. And she is like casual about the fact that a lot of people are going away. And she's sort of thinking about how there had been other people discussing their vacation plans in front of her. These themselves had left Nita unimpressed, for travel by itself was no problem for a wizard. But the idea of being able to get away with the family, even for just a few days, had an entirely different attraction. Unfortunately, this was the busy time of year for Nita's dad. The Easter rush had been wearing him down, and he was tired, too. But no florist in his right mind took a vacation right now. And she says it doesn't matter. Kit and I have a lot to do. All of it can be taking place nearby. Yama says, see, I think that's something that would probably be revised. I don't know. I'm looking, this is the new Millennium Edition. And this is the same as what I heard in the audiobook. So I don't know if that's, that the audiobook is also the revised version, or that simply wasn't revised. So, yeah, I don't think so. So she asks her dad because he's sort of like acting a little bit weird with her. And finally, at one point, he's like, why don't you just go? And she doesn't even get what he means for a second. And then finally he clarifies on this exchange. And she says, are you kidding? I don't know if I can. Tom may already have used the energy for something else. And her dad says, somehow I doubt that. Did you talk to him about this? In generalities, yes. I doubt you would have heard it as you were occupied. I could hear you sneaking up the stairs. And she gets very conscious of like what it would be like for her dad being the one that has to host the wizards that are coming in. And he says something about this, and this is what gets me. I don't know. She says, I don't know if this is a good time to go away and leave you alone. He says, if Darene's here, I won't be alone. Sweetie, I think maybe a break would be a smart thing for you right now. Darene and I would be capable of coping here, and among other things, it'll give me a chance to practice talking to her without a mediator. Possibly a useful life skill. And she says, oh, so you are talking to Millman? And he says, no, some things I can figure out for myself. I am 41. Yeah, you are. You are. Why can't you figure out other stuff for yourself? Like, I don't know. I want to believe that her going will get her dad on his shit a little bit more. That's like my secret desire, is for her to go on this trip and come back and find that her father is equal to doing the grocery shopping. Equal to cooking dinner. That's all I want. Because here's the thing, guys, and look, this is an assumption that I'm making with very little information, and I acknowledge that completely, okay? But the thing is, oftentimes the assertion on this sort of thing is like, well, he works a full-time job. Am I mistaken? Or did Nita's mother also have a full-time job? She did, didn't she? Did she not? Because there is like this understanding when men are the ones that things are expected of, that we have to temper our expectations. But with women, it's just assumed that they're going to be able to manage all of it. And a woman working full-time with 2 children would absolutely be expected to manage feeding her children. And I have a hard time with what's going on here in light of the fact that I'm pretty positive she also worked. And if that's so, what is it that he, like, all this time, he was just letting her take on the lion's share of that stuff? Maybe it's about time he learned what that was like, you know? And and I'm sorry to beat this, because I know that I just said that I wasn't going to do this again, but I'm doing it. I have watched firsthand and secondhand men sit back and take it easy while their wives run around doing everything. I have close friends with kids right now that I am watching do that. And they're not like my friends necessarily in a way that I feel comfortable saying something to them, or else I would be all over their asses for it. But it is simply taken as a given that the wife is going to do all of the things in column A, and everything in column B, that is the husband's responsibility, are things that are weekly, not daily. And I just have a hard time thinking that, based on the way that they're being described, that the household chores were at all evenly divided to begin with. So the fact that it's not an expectation of him now either, I'm just like, why? When did we decide this was okay? You know? Yama says maybe that was just her personality, since her dad has decided already she can go and he'll be fine by himself. He did, but then he was the one who assigned her to make the lists and figure out the grocery shopping in the last chapter. She said something about how she doesn't know how to do it, but she's watched mom do it enough times that she thinks she could figure it out. And his exact words are, okay, that's your job now. And he's, as he puts it, a 41-year-old man who allegedly was doing the grocery shopping as a family with his wife. Why is he not in the position where he's seen his wife do it enough times that he thinks he can figure it out? That's what I mean. And I'm certain this isn't supposed to be as big a fucking feature in my mind as I read it as it is. And that's part of the problem, is that it's just taken for granted. And Nita is beating herself up about it, talking about how she owes the refrigerator an apology. No, why is this her responsibility? I just don't, it's not even, I keep talking about how she's taken on greater responsibility before, yada, yada, yada. And yes, that's all true. But what it comes down to here is that she has taken on that responsibility because she is a wizard. She agreed to that. And that is something that she is in a unique position to do because of her skills and abilities. This other thing is not. And she's a kid and she has enough to fucking do. And her dad can't step up to just make dinner. I can't. I'm sorry, guys, if this is tedious to listen to. But it's just becoming such a thing. And like I said, I am particularly sensitive to this stuff lately. You know, this is part of what ended my first marriage, to be perfectly frank. I was expected to not only have a full-time job, but manage the entire household. And when we made a deal that I stop working in order to manage the household full time, because he couldn't even meet me like a quarter of the way, never mind halfway, it turned into this festering resentment on his part that I wasn't working and bringing in money, even though I was doing all this other shit that he had no interest in. But that wasn't considered valuable. It was taken as a given that I would do that. And the fact that I didn't also bring in an income reliably chafed at him, and he made no secret about it. And I just have always noticed how at holidays and stuff, my mom and my grandmother and my aunts are in the kitchen and the men are in the living room watching television. And these women are shuffling in and out with plates, and they're washing things, and they're cooking, and they're setting things up, and they're greeting people, and they're figuring the menu out, and these men are doing absolutely fucking nothing. Nothing. And that may have been appropriate at a time when men were the only ones working. And I say may with a massive asterisk after, because I don't even think that's fair. But that's not the world we live in anymore, man. Women work too. And we're still expected to shoulder the exact same amount of responsibility as we were when we were not expected to work. Something's got to give, kids. So anyway, her dad says, you ought to be a little kinder to yourself. Go on, goof off a little. You deserve it. And again, it's just such a, like, he gave her this job and this responsibility last chapter, but now he's suddenly being like, you're taking on too much. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? You gave her that. You're her dad, and you told her managing the family's food is her job. Like, one of the most basic aspects of managing the household is now on her. You said that, and now you're acting like she's being unreasonable with herself. Where did she get that, I wonder? What a mystery. It's a shame, because I really like her parents usually, and this just got to me a bit. And he says, maybe I could use a little controlled weirdness. Sounds like that's what we'd be in for. Also, it's a way to give Doreen a little something on the slide and make up for me and your friends, the powers that be, slapping her down so hard. And she says, all right, you know what? I will. And he says, there's one caveat here. I really, really do think it would be better if Kit came with you. Because I know that he has been backup for you in the past, and he has done a good job at that. And as much as I am certain you can handle this, and this is supposed to be like sort of overseen and managed, who knows what happens, I would feel better if you had him with you. And Nita says, did you talk to his parents about me going already? And he says, we have many mysterious modes of communication, aided by the fact that not even teenagers who are wizards can keep an eye on their parents every minute of the day. So then we go to chapter 3, titled Planning Your Trip. And we go to Kit. I had said before in a previous book how much I wanted to get to know Kit's family more. And I'm so happy with how this has unfolded. I really feel gratified by the amount of information that we've got on their personalities, the development of his ability, and it's like influencing the household. And I also find it fascinating how different the outcomes are than they are with Nita. It's weird because like Nita's got a sister who's also a wizard. And so that came with its own set of challenges and issues. But then what's going on with Kit and his sister, like being able to use the speech, but she's not a wizard, and his parents being like completely aware of his abilities and having them like be affected by the neighborhood dogs because of Paunch. It's a whole other kettle of fish, you know? And I wonder if this author just really sat down and was like, all right, being a wizard is going to have to affect each of their families in different ways. How am I going to do that? And it's just fun to watch it unfold so totally differently in each of their lives, you know? And I just really am curious what is going on with Paunch. I am assuming that Paunch leaving with Kit, because Kit's like, when he gets his information, he is allowed to bring Paunch with him on this little exchange program. I am extremely curious what Paunch's role is going to be and whether taking him away from the house is going to affect what's going on with all of these other dogs who are like coming and standing outside their house just yowling. Yama is saying, his family is great, so fun. His sister, amazing. I love all her shopping. Carmela is a delight. She is somebody that I 100% see myself being friends with at that age. And she gives Kit such a hard time. And it's one of those things that is written really well because from the outside, we know what's happening here. It's no question. She is giving Kit a hard time because she can see how irritated he gets, and it tickles her the way that he reacts to it. She is enjoying rattling him. That's how siblings are, so I'm told. And yet, Kit himself can't help but react. he can't help but get irritated, even though he knows she's doing it on purpose. That's the thing about like people who get to know you really well, is that they know the exact button to press that you're not really able to let roll off your shoulder the way you know you should. You know, it's the kind of thing that you can tell you're playing into their hands by getting upset, by showing any sort of reaction. And yet it is a particular sore point for you, and you can't help but be like, what the fuck? And so the way that the two of them sort of egg each other on feels really genuine to me, because it's just her needling him in various ways and knowing exactly how he's going to take something. And I'm going to get to like some of the specifics later, but I found it just, there was something very endearing about it, you know? So she comes into his room, asking, are you busy? And then she says, oh, you are busy. Good. I'll hang around and make you crazy. When he says he's playing with the speed of light, I thought that was supposed to be a law. You shouldn't break laws. I'm not even bending this one, just bending space. Just for the fun of it. You make my brains bleed, you know that? Not half as much as I wish I did, Kit said. And she says, I wanted to know what you thought of Mark. And finally, he just says, he looks like a dork. It's the backward baseball cap. And she says, how cruel. True, but cruel. This is an aspect of having siblings that has never occurred to me before. I always have thought about having siblings in the age bracket of 12 and under. I've thought about it as a teenager more in the aspect of like, you're going to have siblings who want to be hanging out with the older kids and you don't want them around. But your mom's going to tell you, bring your little brother with you, and they're going to completely cramp your style. And that would be really obnoxious. But it didn't occur to me ever what it would be like to have a sibling when you're dating. Because, let's face it, I don't care how hot your significant other was if you were dating in high school. There is always going to be something about them to make fun of. And they're like, siblings enjoy making each other squirm, making one another look bad. So you can have all sorts of moments here, either mocking your brother or sister for being involved at all. This can range from kissy noises to insinuations that you guys are like having sex, maybe saying embarrassing shit in front of your parents about spotting the two of them making out at some point. It could be insinuating to the significant other that your sister took a huge smelly dump the other day and it was so horrible it killed the plants in the bathroom. That kind of thing. Just to embarrass, you know, like this, the equivalent of your parents showing your boyfriend baby pictures of you. That kind of thing. And this aspect of just going and asking, like, what did you think of so-and-so? If you don't have a mature, thoughtful sibling like Kit, it could go so badly. I mean, I could see people just not asking, you know, being like, I don't want to know what you thought of them. Keep that shit to yourself. But yeah, the backward baseball cap, that's getting pretty ancient. Plus his cap's too small for him, and the pop fasteners in it always leave these marks like little rivets on his forehead. And then he's like, all right, look, we need to talk about the television. And let's see, when Kit had later tried to remove the alien content, the TV and DVD player had gone on strike. Kit had been forced to restore the system and had had to admit privately that his sister's demands that it be put back the way it had been after the fix were even more annoying than the system's refusal to function normally. And he says something about how they need to talk about the laser that she bought. And she's like, oh, that. Bitch, you know what he was fucking talking about. And she's just fucking with him. She says, what's the matter with it? I need to make it safe. From what? Not from, for. And she's like, there's no issue with it. Repairing the tile and the plastering in the bathroom had been a week's work at a time when he had much better things to do, and his pop had insisted Kit do it the old-fashioned way, meaning by hand and not by wizardry. Why was that Kit's job to fix? It sounds like she bought some crazy shit and then used it without knowing what it did. Why is Kit saddled with the fixing of that? That does not seem fair to me at all. He didn't tell her to buy that. In fact, he would probably have advised very strongly against doing so. And she's like, you always have to harp on the small stuff. I thought that wasn't good for a wizard. Just find it for me in the next day or so. You can still use it on your hair, but I want to make sure nobody else, like one of your friends when they're over, can find it accidentally, go off with it, and blow up their bathroom. Or more valuable real estate, like the inside of their heads. She says, you're just jealous because I'm getting good at the speech. And she says something eventually about how I might look into becoming a wizard myself. It doesn't work that way, Kit said, feeling incredibly relieved that it didn't. And then when he says, you're too old and it's a lot of hard work, she says, I'm not sure I believe that. Nita makes it look easy. She just reads out of her book or waves that little white wooden wand of hers and things happen. It's not that easy, Kit said, starting to get irritated, possibly by the insinuation that wizardry was easier for Nita than it was for him. Of course that's what's irritating you, and that's what she was banking on, which is exactly why she said it that way, Kit, baby. What are you doing? You know that's why she said it that way. Of course. She's specifically irritating you in, like, comparing you to your friend. Like, of course, that's the easiest way to get a rise out of somebody, is imply that something they and another person do is better and easier when the other person does it. It's like the oldest one in the book. Come on, Kit. Be smarter than this, buddy. What are you doing? I will say, though, anytime that you're good at something and somebody tries to imply that what you do you're good at because that thing is easy is really insulting. And there's no getting away from that. I had this happen not that long ago, actually. I was like talking to some people I had just met at a party, and what came up was like what we each do for a living. And when I was talking about podcasting, people were asking like how it worked, and I talked about the Patreon, and then I talked about Spoil Me and people commissioning me to watch and read things. And they were a little dubious that like people were willing to spend money on it. And I was telling them like sometimes I get bulk orders for like, 70 episodes at a time. And when I was talking about this, one of the people said something like, how much are they paying? Shit, I can talk about a book for an hour. And I know what they were intending was to be like, well, shit, you've got a good deal going on there. But what it sounded like to me was, I can't believe you're making money for something that easy. I could do that too. And I just got so cranky about it. And I had to like consciously step back a little bit and be like, that's not what they meant. They didn't mean to insult you. But there was no way to not take it that way. And I feel like that person, after saying it, realized how it sounded, because they almost didn't finish the sentence. Like it was the kind of thing where they were like, I could talk about it over an hour. Like they faded away at the end of the sentence because I think they realized how snotty they sounded. And nobody else responded to what they said. Somebody changed the subject. So I think everybody else was like, wow, great. Let's not do that, actually. And I appreciated that other people seemed to recognize that that was like kind of just a like crappy attitude to have, A lot of people's jobs are something that we could do. That's not to say that you would be as good at it or better at it or that you would even like it. That's just, people make all kinds of money coding. I'd probably be okay at coding, but I would literally want to kill myself. that's just, not everything is for everybody. Just because you make money at it doesn't make it mean it's the thing. And just because it's just, just one of those moments where I just had to curb my temper a little bit. And so I deeply understood why Kit reacted to Carmela the way he did here. Because I was just like, yeah, that'll do it. So she says, I'll go get the thingy for you. And as she gets up, the phone rings. And then she's like, in a while. And she runs off. So let's see. He looks down and sees that Paunch is awake. And Paunch is like, well, I wasn't awake the entire time. Kit asks, what am I going to do with her? And Paunch says what I was thinking. She's just saying things like that to make you chase her tail. I can hear it in her voice. She thinks it's fun. And Kit says the thing is she's been getting unusual lately. And then he stops and realizes like Paunch is also being unusual lately. And he really doesn't know what to make of either one of those things. Paunch rolled to his feet, got up, stretched fore and aft, and then came over to Kit and put his nose on Kit's knee. Dinner? He said. So they go downstairs. He's talking to his mother about Nita coming over for dinner. And I love when he feeds Paunch and he says, do you know what it is? What? It's dog food. Oh, hooray! Dog food again, Paunch said and jumped up and down some more. But Kit caught the amused glint in Paunch's eye as he got a can of dog food out of the cupboard. I really did enjoy that. I don't know, like, there's just something about that, the idea of the animal both being like, yes, this is what I wanted, and also being like, wow, what a variety. Really stretching yourself, aren't you? I have, so in my neighborhood, there's a lot of stray cats. And I will periodically have one that's, like, consistently coming around. And there will be a couple that have been, in the past, very, very friendly. But I just am not in a position to adopt another cat in my house. So I have tried to, like, feed them and do things to make them feel welcome and safe outside. And lately, there has been a calico cat. And guys, she had kittens. She had a batch of 4 kittens. A black one, an orange one, a calico one, and a tabby. And I swear to God, it's like a variety pack. You know, it's like the exact set of 4 types of cat. And I am obsessed, and she won't let me anywhere near them. She's very, very timid, and she's only just recently started to, like, let us pet her or anything. We've been feeding her for a month now, at least. And I get the same energy from her of just being like, cat food! And it's no problem for her. Same shit every day. It's great. Mordecai just joined in the chat saying, I'm finally on time. Mordecai, baby, you're 40 minutes late. I'm sorry. Well, almost on time. Better than 4 hours. That's fair. True. So, in the living room, things had gone quieter as Carmela got off the phone and went back to talking to the TV. Or rather, to someone the powers that be only knew how many, the powers that be only knew how many light years away. From the sound of it, she was translating a subtitled display rather than listening to live speech. But at the moment, that didn't seem to be helping her much. What? Do I what? Do I Grenfells? I don't think so. No, I am not shy. Okay, then show me an image. Carmela, this was definitely written in an era before the kinds of interactions that we have grown used to. Because this is not cute. This is upsetting. Because all I can think is that they're just like, you want to jerk off for the camera? And later on, her dad sees this picture and is like, what's the fire hose? And she's like, I don't think that's a fire hose. And I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? I hated it. Anyway. So, Kit has to make a conscious effort to not step in because he knows that she gets irritated when he keeps trying to interfere. And Kit went to look out the kitchen window again. He'd done this earlier when he'd just come back from Nita's and Ponch had still been asleep. Then the sidewalk outside their house had been empty. Now, though, it was full of dogs. There were at least 10 of them. Most were neighborhood dogs. Yeah, and let's see. The big silvery Great Dane from down Nita's street, sitting next to Tinkerbell, yada, yada, yada. Are they still out there? Kit's mama said. Yeah. Remember our little talk the other day? Yeah, Mama, I'm working on it. Well, work harder. Kit turned away from the window, annoyed. He had spent some weeks in consultation with Tom Swale on the question of what was causing the increasing weirdness around his house. The best explanation Tom had been able to come up with was hypermantic contagion syndrome, an irritatingly vague suite of symptoms, usually more casually described as wizardry leakage. Days of perusing his manual had left Kit completely in the dark as to exactly what kind of wizardry or whose was leaking from where into what. And until he figured those things out, there was no stopping the leak. I don't really have a theory on this. Like, I am assuming it's leaking from Kit into Ponch, but I don't know why or how. And the question is, like, is this a problem? Because he's acting as if what he definitely needs to do is stop the leak. And I'm not sure that's true. Why? Like, sure, things are maybe a little bit annoying, but are they harmful? Not as far as I can see. And life can just be annoying, with or without wizardry. So a part of me is like, I don't know that that's necessarily something that you need to worry about, you know? And also, I just love the fact that it's an irritatingly vague suite of symptoms, because that just is so true of, like, actual medicine. You guys know, you know, you have some symptoms, you're wondering what's wrong with you, and you look them up and think that it's like a specific enough cluster of symptoms to, like, pinpoint something. And it turns out it could be 40 different things, from cancer to a head cold. Who knows? And you can just spend ages trying to get any sort of straight answer on what could be going on with you, you know? Okay, so he's looking at the dogs and realizing, like, at least they're being quiet. And the Rodriguez house used to be a fairly quiet and peaceful place before the past month or so. Before the dogs, before the TV, before Carmela became a boy magnet. The noise wasn't his fault, and Kit had pointed out more than once that there was nothing he could do about the amount of noise Carmela made. And at this point, Kit turns away from the window, and he says to Ponch, they're out there again. And Ponch is like, I've told them not to do that. And they listen for a little while, but then they forget I said anything. And he says, why are they doing it, though? And Ponch doesn't know. He says they don't seem to know either. They're not good at figuring things out. I'll let you know when I figure out what's on their minds. And Kit says, can you tell them not to howl? Ponch is like, they like to sing. I like it too. Even Carmela likes to sing. What's the matter with it? Kit closed his eyes briefly. His sister's singing voice was, to put it kindly, untrained. Just tell them, okay? Kit said. I do enjoy that. Well, we like to sing. What's the problem? You know what, buddy? Fair. But it sucks. Oh, man, guys. When dogs howl, I don't know what's worse, actually. A dog continually howling or a kid crying. I think probably a kid crying is worse, because it tends to be a lot more piercing. But a dog howling is pretty bad. Yama says, I assumed the other way around, from Ponch to whatever. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm figuring that Ponch has magic because, like, Kit leaked it to him. But I don't know that. Ponch could just, like, kind of be a wizard. Can he be a wizard? Like, I don't... I don't know. That's like I said, I don't really have a theory here. Not really. It could be anything. So finally, Nita appears. And I love this. She takes forever getting there, but it turns out it's only been 10 minutes. But Kit is really like on edge. It turns out it's a good time for him to also get the fuck out of here. So let's see. She calls before she comes over. Be over in a few, but you need to hear about this first. My dad wants me to go away on this exchange thing. You gonna go? Kit immediately began to itch with something that felt embarrassingly like envy. Yeah, and when we got back from shopping, my manual was about half an inch thicker than when we'd left, and a whole bunch of sealed claudication packages were sitting on my desk. Hey, super, Kit said, and was instantly annoyed at himself for not sounding as enthusiastic as he thought he should have. This will be so great for you. You should get out there and have a good time. What do you mean I should go? You're so pitiful when you're trying to be a good loser. You know that? I was going to tell you my dad doesn't want me to go alone. Tom still has an opening and he's holding it for you. I love this. I love this so much. Look, there's a... Sex in the City has not aged well. But there's one episode that starts in a way that I feel will always ring true for me. The first line is, let's be honest. Sometimes there's nothing harder than being happy for someone else. And it's such an unfortunate truth. You can know you should be. But it can be really, really tough, man, you know? And it's not necessarily that you begrudge them or resent it or anything like that. You just wish it was happening to you. That's, you know? And I often think about that. And there are times where something great has happened to a friend. And while a part of me is like, man, I wish that were me, I am able to be purely happy for them. And there is no baggage with it at all. But sometimes there is. You know, you can't help that. And you can be aware of it and try and manage that. And I think that's the mature way to handle it. But it's just not always avoidable, is my point. And I love this. You let me stew for a whole, 5 seconds thinking I was going to have to sit here. This is to get you back for the chicken thing. Oh, I don't know. I might want it myself. I love it. So she tells him that she's going to come over and they'll look at everything together. And the people on the planet that they're going to are humanoids, real tall people, all kind of a tan color. Kit's attention was on the image of the planet, banded blindingly around its equator with a white two-way highway of swirling weather systems. The one continent was a big, rough-edged crescent about a third of the way up from the equator towards Oahu's North Pole. A 3/4 circle with the open end pointing more or less north. Kit wondered if he was looking at a remnant of some gigantic ancient meteor strike. The other two land masses were halfway around the planet from the crescent island. They were irregularly shaped blobs, long and narrow, with great chains of islands, large and small, strung out from them at either end, and each chain straddling Oahu's equator. One island chain ran almost vertically, pointing at the poles. The other crossed the equator more diagonally, like a sword stuck in the planet's equatorial belt. And he sees that the island chains are 9,000 miles long. The planet is 36,000 miles in diameter. How many miles in diameter is Earth? I'm curious. You know what? Let me just head over to the old Googles here. Earth diameter miles. 7,917. Wow. Okay. So over 3 times the size. Oh, almost 4 times the size. Damn. No, actually more than 4 times. 36,000? Yeah. That's a big-ass planet. Okay, shit. And what's so interesting is that they only have one wizard on the entire planet. One? For the whole planet? Yup. And how many people live there? It says 1.5 billion. They haven't had a big catastrophe or something that's wiped out all their wizards? Nope, the manual says one wizard is all they need. Wow, he said again. He had trouble even imagining any world so peaceful and orderly that one wizard was enough to help keep things running smoothly. So, she comes over, and we have a couple of interactions. First, greeting his mother, and then seeing Paunch. She goes and talks to Carmela, who mentions Genfelsing, and Nita says to Carmela, well, Carmela points out which one of the little avatars is her, a pink octopus. Mela, Nita said, you know what would be better? Go offline and pick something more humanoid. Otherwise, if Pink Octopus Guy turns up at school someday and wants to sit next to you, the explanation you're going to find yourself making is going to sound like something out of a lame sitcom. Oh, Carmela said. Okay. She tossed the remote to Kit. But do aliens just turn up on Earth like that? There's no other possible way to explain you, Kit said. Ooh, Carmela said, standing up. I really enjoyed that. They're needling one another. Just rings very true to me. So this is when he asks his dad, is it okay if I go across the galaxy for a couple of weeks? Sure, Kit's father said from behind the paper. Is Nita going with you? Yeah, Pop. Her dad said it's okay? Yeah. Fine. Dress warm. Kit and Nita exchanged bemused glances. Finally, Kit turned toward the kitchen. You want to fill your mama in on the details, Kit's father said, in a tone of voice suggesting complete unconcern. Kit couldn't bear it anymore. He looked over his shoulder and saw his father just peering over the top of the newspaper at him, waiting for his reaction. His father bent the paper down just enough to let Kit see his grin, then let the paper pop up again and went on with his reading. I've been had, Kit muttered. Nita rolled her eyes. The story of our lives. I love this because it's so many YA writers paint parents as completely incompetent, oblivious assholes. And it's I appreciate that the parents in these stories are so involved in their kids' lives, the way most parents genuinely are, that they immediately in the first couple books are like, okay, what the fuck, guys? What is going on? Because it's wild in some stuff how the kids are just sneaking out of windows and going wherever after school and not coming home till 9 p.m. and suddenly calling their parents saying they're staying at their friend's house and the parent doesn't ask to speak to their friend's parents or anything. That is not life, man. There are some parents who are sort of neglectful and don't care, and that's true. But in YA shit, practically all parents are like that, and it's really annoying to watch. So I love that these parents are not only aware of what's going on, but they're doing shit behind their own kids' backs. They know what's happening. And that to me really rings true too about what it's like as a kid. You often think you're getting away with shit, and then you find out years later your parents fucking knew what you were doing. You weren't fooling them. They were just too I guess it's harmless enough. Let her do it. And they just decided not to make a battle out of it because you got to pick the battle. And you thought you were really pulling one over on them, and you weren't. You weren't at all. They just fucking let you do the thing because why bother, you know? So this really just hit for me. So yeah, Kit's mama says that Nita's dad called, Tom called. He gave us the basics. I gather this isn't going to be at all dangerous and that you'll be able to come home at night if you want or if we want you to. And she goes through all of these things to be well, should you be able to go? Your grades and yada, yada, yada. And eventually, of course, gets to the point where she's like, okay, but I want commitments from both of you. You're going to work a lot harder in that history class. See if maybe the guy's really all that fixated on dates. And then she says, if I don't get to tease you sometimes, life won't be worth living. When do you leave? As they find out later, they're leaving tomorrow. But right now, they don't have that information quite yet. So they go upstairs to Kit's room, and he has all of these packages. First, there is, let's see, the mission statement. Let's see. Kit took hold of the wizardly package, pulling it into the middle of the room, and pulled the string of characters out until the normally curved characters of the speech went straight with the tension of the pull. As they did, the package unfolded itself in the air, a sheet of semi-shadow on which many more characters in the speech swiftly spread themselves in blocks of text and columns, small illustrations and diagrams, and various live and still images. Sponsored elective non-interventional excursus program. Excursus program. Nominee authorizations and ancillary data. Note, where cultural correspondences are not exact, local analogs are substituted. Beneath the header, divided into various sections, was a tremendous amount of other information about the world where they'd be staying, the family they'd be staying with, the culture, the locality where the family lived, the planet's history, the climate, the flora and fauna, on and on and on. I have done a homestay program. It was not an exchange program. Nobody came here in my place. But when I lived in Guatemala for a time, I moved in with a family there. I lived with two different families. I was eventually moved because the first family that I was staying with did not have plumbing, hot water, or anything like that. And they had sort of fibbed on the file because they got paid for when people stayed with them. So they had lied about what the conditions were of their home. And I didn't realize that that was part of the deal, was that I was supposed to have plumbing. So I just mentioned offhand that they didn't have any hot water at the house I was staying at. And I wound up getting moved that day. And I felt really bad about it because I kind of think I screwed them over, but I just didn't know, But I know my first meal with that family, it was just me and a bunch of people who spoke Spanish. And I grew up in a household with a father who spoke Spanish, but I didn't know the language well at all. And when I had no person with me to help translate, I couldn't believe how terrified I was. I had nobody to cling to. And I keep thinking about what it would be like to do this sort of program where it's literally a whole other planet, a whole other type of life form. And if they were doing this alone, how utterly terrifying that would be. Forget it. I was just in a different country with a different language. That's it. And it was still very scary being by myself. I felt there's nothing quite like the realization that you get when you are in a situation where you have to speak for yourself. And you begin to realize just how little you actually know how to say. You just keep running across words that you want to use that you don't know. And you feel like such an idiot. And I often feel so much for people for whom English is their second language, because you can see how frustrated they are. I'm sure they're perfectly articulate in their language and they're just struggling, and people mistake the fact that they don't know certain words for stupidity. And it's no, they're doing something wild here and learning a whole other language. This is, if anything, evidence of intelligence, but they just don't know it super well yet. And I just, this whole thing, the one thing I'll say is that because they have the speech, that's just a major obstacle overcome. If there was a language barrier, forget it. And I don't know, maybe the speech won't be a universal thing there. I don't know if that's just something that the wizards use, and maybe that won't be something they can do with everyone. But it's just, that kind of immersive experience is really intimidating. And it's it's super effective. I began to dream in Spanish. I really did get a hold of the language eventually. But I'll tell you what, I lost it again. Once I was out of there and was home for a couple of years, it really began to just disappear on me. So yeah, this is when it's mentioned you may be accompanied by your adjunct talent if desired. And Kit's shit, I can bring Paunch. And Then they find out that they're leaving the very next day and they're going to be gone for 2 full weeks. So it's going to be the entire duration of their spring break. And then the other package they open, first there's a pup tent. And it's like this really awesome storage space that they can fit a fair amount of things into and bring back and forth with them. And, I keep thinking about like, they're going to be gone for 2 weeks. How much are they going to be? And then I remember they can come home at night because of the way that they have this like claudication thing that's set up. So they won't even necessarily need to pack that much if they can just bounce back home in the evenings and grab a sweater, get some dinner. I don't know how that is going to actually work. But yeah, so then we get the other package that they're instructed not to open. Danger, custom portable world gating locus. Danger, do not implement without reading instructions. There are so many different instructions here. Insert coordinates of desired home egress points into compacted routine package, including at least 2 alternate points for each primary point for use should primary point be occupied. I like that. Basically, make sure that you have some place to like pop into in case your mom's standing at the stove when you try and jump into the spot next to the stove. Transport compacted routine package to relocation site. Warning, do not attempt to deploy routine package before arrival at final relocation site. Note that basic deployments cannot be reversed once exercised. Do not attempt to deploy routine package before arrival at final relocation site. So what does that mean? Like, until you are where you're staying, you can't use it to go home again, I'm assuming? Some of the language here, while I think it is like well done, I did find confusing. After arriving at relocation site, attach coordinate package to supplied power conduit package. Choose an appropriate locus for installation and activate in the usual manner. See attached annotation for cultural and logistical considerations. This installation requires a matter substrate. Do not install in areas where matter state is likely to experience unpredictable shifts. So basically, like, this can't be in a gaseous area. Like, there needs to be some concrete around, something to attach it to. Let's see. Yama says you can't open the packing tent till you get there. I don't think it was the tent. I think it's this like gate thing that you're supposed to set up. I think what the coordinate package is like a beacon, sort of homing device. So like what they're saying is go to like where you're going to be staying and set up this beacon, and then you can use it to go between places. But if you go somewhere else and then try and use this thing from there, it's not going to work because it's been built specifically for like this particular assignment. That's my understanding, but I may be getting it wrong because, like I said, I did find the language a little bit confusing. So let's see. They're spatial-only transit gates, subsidized ones. You can use them as many times as you want, come home whenever you want, and you don't have to pay for it. I love this. And your host family, the Pelayan family, consists of female analog parent, a male analog parent, and one sub-latency Aleid, your counterpart and fellow wizard Quelt, female analog. The Pelayans are atypical in that one family member, Kawilin, has elected to physical labor as a permanent evocation rather than in rotation, as is common in this society. The family lives in a typical rural dwelling by the shore of the inner sea, 20 kilometers from the nearest large population aggregate. And they're super stoked because this sounds like a beach, which it will be a beach, but y'all don't know what a beach looks like there, so don't get too excited because they have clearly got like Kokomo playing in their head already. And kids, you don't know what it's going to look like because I have seen a beach or two in Bridgeport, Connecticut that you don't want to get anywhere near. So I'm just saying, just fucking pump the brakes a little bit, kids, because you just don't know yet. So this is when they are like, they had a little chat before about the fact that this is supposed to be genuinely just a learning experience, that there's not supposed to be missions or anything super dangerous while they're doing this. And when I said in my intro that I'm worried, I want this to genuinely be we get up to some hijinks while on an exchange program book. I want this to, like, I understand that we need stakes. I am totally fine with having some stakes. And I mean that in every sense. But I don't mind if there isn't a life or death world-ending crises in this book. We don't need them. I would love to just see what some wizards do when they do this program. That said, I don't think that's how it's going to go. But I really wouldn't mind a bit of a break from the massive shit that's been happening, you know? And so I feel for Nita in that she is like simultaneously excited, but also like the last time we tried to vacation at a beach, I almost got sacrificed. So, and I was like, yeah, I'm not mad at you for being anxious about that, girl. So yeah, the chapter ends with the two of them getting called down for dinner, and Carmela is like still on some chat, and Kit says something like, oh my God, I don't know if halfway across the galaxy is far enough. And that is the end of the chapter. So I have to wrap up. Thank you again, Yama, for hanging out with me and for commissioning this. Yama says, did you get the chapters breakup from Jacob? Yes, and I meant to thank Jacob for that. Thank you for reminding me. And Jacob sent it to me and told me to forward it to Patricia, and I forgot. I will do that. But hopefully... And wait, Mordecai, you're Patricia, right? Am I right about this? I can forward you the chapter breakdown if you are interested. And that way you know what I'm going to be doing. Because some things are being, like, I have to pause, like, mid-chapter sometimes. So, all right. I'm going to wrap now. Thank you guys again very much. And I will be seeing you again. Let's see. When is the next one? Tuesday, September 7th. Very soon with the next episode. So I'll see you then. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.